important issue right now is that the Prime Minister has spoken very clearly as far as terror is concerned. The big uncertainty now is what's on Xi Jinping's mind. There are obvious contradictions in China's track record in terms of Pakistani terror concerned. But given this new alignment with India and the pressure on both countries to come together in the face of a sort of common challenge from Trump, are you getting the sense from there in Tianjin that China is willing to go the distance as far as terror is concerned?
Well, there is certainly a realignment. There is certainly a thought in the room that there needs to be a change of thought process. There needs to be a change of diplomacy, and the dialogue in diplomacy needs to continue, especially between Beijing and New Delhi. But Shiv, one needs to also realize here that there's a huge trust deficit, and that cannot get over unless there is, some walk the talk that China really does. It hasn't been. There are tall words and commitments coming in, but not much has happened in Eastern Ladakh. There, much needs to change that. On the other side, there's huge investment shift that Pakistan has done as part of the BRI, CPEC in Pakistan. And there is no return on that investment that's clearly coming in. So they are in a catch-22. There's a lot of investment through CPEC and in Balochistan, mining taking place, the border port, etc. So it's a one-way street, money that's going in there. There are strategic concerns that China has, and that's why it's indulging in that kind of a trade and investment. But certainly, it also realizes that this is at a huge, huge cost. So we'll have to wait and watch if anything changes in a complete paradigm shift, but it's unlikely shift because both the leaders have also spoken mainly about the people-to-people contact, mutual respect and mutual trust. That will take time to get there.
And here's a sobering thought, just to add to what Aditya is saying. India has put out an unequivocal message on where it stands vis-a-vis terrorism and especially terrorism from Pakistan. But what did the Chinese president say in his opening remarks at the SCO members session? There was no mention of terrorism. He talked about broad cooperation, and just to put out a few pointers from there, he said SCO member states are all friends and partners. We should respect our differences, maintain strategic communication, build up consensus, strengthen solidarity and collaboration, and make the pie of cooperation bigger, utilize the endowment of every country. So he's basically spoken about, enlarging the scope of the cooperation we have.
And manage contradictions.
Yes, and manage contradictions, but no real word on terrorism by name. Vishnu.
I'm just trying to see whether there was mention or not. I do believe that in the conversation between Xi and Modi, there was mention of terrorism.
Yeah, but not in his opening remarks. Not
at the SCO. Yeah.
Not at the SCO today, but in the bilateral there was.
Yeah.
And I think that's significant.
I think Aditya is saying something.
Go ahead.
Vikram Misri did confirm yesterday that when the dialogue was happening, a bilateral dialogue,
in response to
when Prime Minister spoke in detail, in response to that, Chinese president was understanding, and he did admit that he supports India's fight against terrorism.
And I think that is important. We'll bring you, our viewers, a transcript of what exactly the Foreign Secretary said on the issue of China and terrorism, because this is a theme that we need to keep following up on, because it sends a huge message to Pakistan besides anything else.
No, this the sensitivities here are interesting, aren't they, Aditya? This is a great sort of example of the delicate sort of navigation necessary in diplomacy, even at these multilateral fora. Like you said, this isn't instant noodles. So it's interesting and very important that Xi Jinping has acknowledged and mentioned terror in that bilateral with Modi, hasn't mentioned it in his opening comments at the SCO, because you've got Shehbaz Sharif also sitting there. So there are all these juggleries to manage. But the overall message is important, and I think India will also take the fact that he has talked about terror, as Vikram Misri confirmed to you in that comment that he said in response to your question. That will be the big takeaway for India. It's important that Xi Jinping is on board as far as that is concerned.
Absolutely, Shiv. I mean, at the platform of the SCO during the plenary session in presence of Shehbaz Sharif, speaking of terrorism, it's not a passing remark. It is a detailed conversation. It's a detailed speech on terrorism, why it needs to be condemned, the Pahalgam terror attack, and some countries, supporting terrorism in this region. So it's a very loud statement that has come out. I also want to mention that one thing that I've noticed during this particular visit is that the Pakistani delegation is not confident. The Pakistani delegation, even though they are in their friendly country, which they call an iron brother, and this I say both the government delegation and the media. I just met a top diplomat of Pakistan who was posted in Delhi a few years ago. He seemed very, not angry, but a little low. So that is the body language of the Pakistani diplomats out here. On the other hand, for the first time, there's a huge Indian media delegation in the last few years that has come to China. So that is an upbeat momentum about the India-China relations. Also,
Sure. Aditya, just hold on for a second. And, I just want to speak a little bit about what was mentioned in the conversation between the Prime Minister and Xi Jinping on terrorism. According to the Foreign Secretary, and I quote, cross-border terrorism was mentioned by the Prime Minister as a priority. And I would add that he did underline the fact that this is something that impacts both India and China. It's important, therefore, that we extend an understanding and extend support to each other as both of us combat cross-border terrorism. And I would, in fact, like to say, and this is the important part, Shiv and Padmaja, I would, in fact, like to say that we have received the understanding and cooperation of China as we have dealt with the issue of cross-border terrorism in the context of the ongoing SCO summit. So that's, in fact, fairly significant. If what Vikram Misri said yesterday, referring to support from China on the issue of terrorism in the context of the ongoing SCO summit, to use his words, can we not likely find very explicit mention of this in the joint communique?
We will, in fact, see a mention of terrorism. But as you said, Vishnu and Shiv and Padmaja, that if Pahalgam is mentioned, if Pahalgam is mentioned, it will be a game changer. It will be a game changer in the form the policy is adopted. It will be a game changer in the way the perception really changes towards China, and will pave a way for a new level of dialogue between India and China as well. Till now, we've seen a false equivalence between terrorism by Pakistan and Kashmir to what's happening in Balochistan. That's not acceptable to India. You need to condemn terrorism. There cannot be good terror and bad terror. And you need to, in fact, condemn terror in all its manifestations.